if there are a group of men sitting around talking about political or social issues, when they say people think, do they mean that women think? Do they mean that, you know, there's a passage in the book where someone says, Scout, I believe, says, in her narrative voice says, that Tom Robinson would have been a fine specimen of a man had he been whole, because there was something wrong with his own. When we think about the sports that people engage in, do we think of people with no legs as the people? So my question is, the reason that I think that the book is still relevant is that a lot of things still haven't changed. And where we may not have as much malevolent oppression, we still have benevolent oppression. And it's benevolent. You know, people aren't trying to hurt people, but we just don't see each other as the same. And so we don't treat each other the same. And I think that is a great insight that Harper Lee had.
Atticus is explaining to the kids, trying to explain racism to the kids, and he says, and I'll paraphrase because I don't remember the exact words, but basically what he says is that as you grow older, you will see white people cheat black people every day. And no matter where that white person is from, no matter how long his family's been here, no matter how rich they are, that white man is trash. That's a bold statement to say out loud in 1961 in the South. And Harper Lee said it out loud so that we all heard it.
I think there's a bit of Harper Lee in all of these characters. I think there's a bit of Harper Lee in Scout and in Boo and in Atticus Finch. She identified with her father.
Of course, the book is set in 1935. But if Harper Lee had set this book in 1955, would it have been much different? And in reality, if she had said it in 1975, would it have been that much different?
What's unique that this book shows, and I was wondering if you guys agree, is that the fact that even though there was so much going on, in truth, the South is very much more integrated than, say, the North, where there's certain neighborhoods, where in the South you could walk down a neighborhood and you'll meet multiple families. They may not get along, they may not share the same views, but the South is so different in the fact that even though you had all of these issues, that they were still so integrated and within each other's backyards.
They talk about that. Of course, she's being racist when she talks about it, but she's talking about the fact that those Northerners are just as racist as we are. And so I think Harper Lee was struggling with some of those things too, because there were perceptions of how close blacks and whites lived together in the South, and they did. And of course, there were black women working in white women's houses and raising white women's children. And so we had a kind of unique relationship, I think, with the black people in our lives.
I keep talking about the other and how Boo was one of the others, but you have to remember that Scout's conclusion about Boo, after all this trial and all this ugliness had happened, Scout's conclusion was, well, no wonder he doesn't come out of his house. You know, there's all this garbage out here. And so she was identifying with the other, and I think Absolutely. That's what we do when Absolutely. We read this book. We identify Absolutely. With the other.
No question.
The South has always been rather tolerant of its eccentrics. Would you all agree? You know, if you've read Faulkner's A Rose for Emily, about Miss Emily, who lives in the only mansion still left in town, and she doesn't pay her taxes, and everybody just kind of lets her have her way. And Boo Radley's an eccentric, and so is Scout. Miss Merriweather says, hypocrites, Miss Perkins, born hypocrites. At least we don't have that sin on our shoulders down here. People up there set them free, but you don't see them sitting at the table with them. At least we don't have the deceit to say to them, yeah, you're as good as we are, but stay away from us. Down here, we just say, you live your way and we'll live ours. I think that woman, that Miss Roosevelt's lost her mind, Eleanor Roosevelt, of course, just plain lost her mind coming down to Birmingham trying to sit with them. If I was the mayor of Birmingham, I'd Well, neither of us was the mayor of Birmingham, but I wished I was the governor of Alabama for one day. I'd let Tom Robinson go so quick the missionary society wouldn't have time to catch his breath. So that's one of the conversations about that subject in this book.
Miss Maud and bakes the cakes.
Yeah.
Miss Maud.
Miss Mike.
What I loved about her was she would watch the kids and she would be laughing at the kids, and the kids would be just completely puzzled as to what she was laughing about. But every time she baked a cake, she baked 3 little ones for them too. And yeah, there was that lady lived 2 doors down. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think that anyone who wouldn't want to be Atticus Finch, I don't understand. I just don't understand that. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Yeah, Atticus Finch, we didn't, there were no lawyers in Inverness at all. We had no lawyers, much less courthouse. The courthouse was in Indianola. And so all of that was removed from what I knew when I first read it. But when I thought of Atticus Finch, I just thought of, this was a good man.
Yeah.
This man was good. That's what I thought of him, but my favorite was Scout, because of her unique observations of the situations. I mean, you have to remember, when you start reading this book, Scout has yet to enter the 1st grade.
Right.
And her explanations of some of the things that are going on are just, beyond the normal and right on too.
But still
Most of
believable.
them, yeah.
But you can still
you buy it.
believe-
You buy
you can
every
still
word of it.
believe
Yeah.
Just like Huckleberry Finn in Mark Twain's novel, telling that story from a 12-year-old point of view.
I have grandchildren who don't understand in terms of when I try and tell them to be careful in what's happening in the world. I've got a grandson who says, I don't know what you're talking about, and he does not, because he has not had the experience. But what I have to do is keep reminding myself that I'm not in the 50s, I'm not in the 60s, and know this lady may not be looking at me and saying, this black woman. It is hard, but I've been in the academic world and in social work and all that, and it is really hard because you bring all of that baggage with you. You really do.
We didn't grow up in the civil rights movement, so we don't have, I don't want to say that bias, but we just don't see it the same way as they do. I haven't really, I've been subject to discrimination, but not the way that people who grew up in the 60s did, so I don't see it, it doesn't touch me in that way so much.
Did you like the book, or did you think it was outdated? Or?
No, I liked it. It's a really good book because, there still is discrimination, not only towards blacks, but towards lots of minorities. Arabs, of course, now is a big thing, and
Muslims.
yeah, Muslims, Mexicans. People don't discriminate towards illegal immigrants and stuff like that. So it's still relevant.
This could have happened in 1965 in Mississippi, where I grew up. When I read this book, I had no doubt what the outcome of the trial would be. I had hope that it wouldn't be, but I had no doubt what was going to happen. And in 65, it could have happened. Would it happen today? I don't think so.
No, I don't think it happened to it.
I'm far removed from North Mississippi because I've been in South Louisiana now, and it's different down here than it was then. But it's amazing. Racism and injustice doesn't become less ugly because time passes. It's the same. It's as ugly now as it was then.
People just learn how to hide it a little better, as you said.
Well, you also learn to recognize it.
Underneath the surface, yeah, you can change behavior, but you can't change people's hearts. And I think that's where a lot of racism and prejudice still exists.